Think O'Reilly Auto Parts. For all your car care needs, you can get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Oh, O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. Should Justin Fields be the third quarterback taken by the San Francisco 49ers? We'll get to that coming up, but first your calls. 800-224-2004 is the number. If you want to weigh in, you also could get me on Twitter at Jake Asman. You follow me on Twitter today, I follow you right back. That's always how we do it here on a Saturday program. Let's start it off this afternoon. We got Richard in West Virginia calling in. He takes exception to my take about Trevor Lawrence from the previous segment. What's going on, Richard?
Yeah, I sort of do take exception to it because, as I was telling the producer, Dan Marino never won our ring. And I certainly respect him because he put on a lot of big numbers. And I just do. Maybe it could be because of that, because he did have the running back. He did have the wide receivers. So maybe that could be a knock on him that he never did win a championship because of why. They said, what would be the reason why? Just time to think about that. Why would be the reason he had tremendous wide receivers and he had running backs? Well, the question is, why didn't he win the ring? What was the problem? Was Don Shula his coach?
Yes, he was. Well, Richard, let me tell you this. You look at Dan Marino's career. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of the best quarterbacks ever. But the problem with his career is that he never won. And that gets brought up. As great as he is, Dan Marino, if he had a couple championship rings, would be considered one of the best of all time. But you can't put him in that discussion. You can't put him in the top 4 on the Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks when he doesn't have a Super Bowl ring. So if Trevor Lawrence is going to be as good as people think he will be, right? He's going to be, John Elway and Peyton Manning. He's going to be one of those type of players. Then he's going to end up having to win a championship. Just like John Elway needed to win a championship at the end of his career to cap it all off. And he won back-to-back and then retired. So, Trevor Lawrence could have a great career and never win a Super Bowl, Richard, but there's always going to be something missing if he doesn't win that championship.
I guess so, but it comes out, you said that Dan Marino is definitely a first ballot Hall. Is he a first ballot Hall of Famer, or is he already a first ballot Hall of Famer? He's been retired for a long time. Is he already a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Yeah, I mean, Dan Marino was a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. And I thank you for the call, Richard. But I'll tell you what, as great as Dan Marino is he not the first guy we mention when we talk about the greatest athletes that have never won a championship? It's like him, it's Charles Barkley.
I mean, Marino is almost like the poster boy for that. You know what I mean? And you're right. I agree with you 100%. You can't put him obviously above Tom Brady, but I wouldn't put him above Peyton or, Aaron Rodgers maybe is even borderline. Joe Montana. I mean, Elway, as you mentioned, like you just can't put a guy who never won against guys who did. Because back to your original point about Trevor Lawrence, the whole reason we're doing this whole thing is to win a title at the end, right? You're not playing for fun. That's the one goal that you have, and you can't put Marino on that same tier. As great as he was, you just can't do it.
No, you can't do it at all. You're right. And I love the game of Dan Marino. If you watch highlights of Dan Marino when he was slinging the rock in the late 80s, and imagine what he could have done if he played today with the present set of rules, he would have every record. I mean, he had every record when he retired, but he never won. And it's not only his fault, but just think about Marino's career. He had Don Shula, who's one of the great coaches ever, and they never won a Super Bowl together. That's crazy to fathom. As great as Trevor Lawrence might end up being, if he doesn't have a career that ends with a ring, it's not going to be judged the way it probably should. You got to win a championship. That's what separates, great careers from legendary careers. Dan Marino had a great career. Can you call it a legendary career if he never won a championship? I don't know if you can. I mean, Dolphins fans might disagree, but I don't know if you can. 800-224-2004. Now to Justin Fields. Justin Fields should be the third quarterback taken in my mind. When you go through the reasoning behind why the Niners love Mac Jones, to me, it doesn't add up. I keep hearing about how smart Mac Jones is, how intuitive he is. Well, Mac Jones graded out to be the lowest quarterback in this class on throws outside the first read. You look at the athleticism of these quarterbacks. And we're talking about the top 5 here. Is Mac Jones not the least athletic guy out of the ones we're discussing? I like Mac Jones as a player. He might end up being a very good guy. But when I hear people like questioning Justin Fields' desire for football or his leadership, I laugh at that. College football in the Big Ten was only played last year because Justin Fields spoke out and wanted to play. He had nothing to play for. He came off a sophomore season where he had like 44 touchdowns and 3 picks. He didn't need to do anything. And when the game mattered the most in a playoff game against Clemson, Justin Fields went 22 of 28 for 385 yards and 6 touchdowns. And then he threw in another 42 rushing yards for good measure. I mean, give me a break. Dan Orlovsky referenced NFL sources who expressed concern over Fields' work ethic, stating that Fields is a last guy in, first guy out type of quarterback. There are concerns he has a desire to be great. Really? His desire to be great last year when he didn't need to be, he could have just sat out, got the Big Ten to play football. Justin Fields has been unfairly attacked through this process. You know, the Jets don't want to take him at number 2. I get it. I think Zach Wilson is certainly deserving of being the next quarterback taken after Trevor Lawrence. But Justin Fields possesses a bunch of blue chip traits. He's 6'3". He's got arm talent. He's got athleticism. He blazed a mid 4.4 in the 40. He could beat you in the pocket. He can improvise from the outside. Justin Fields should be the guy the Niners take. Don't give me Trey Lance. Trey Lance played 1 game last year, and before that was in a run-heavy offense. So Trey Lance might end up being pretty good. But what am I missing on Justin Fields? I mean, what is out there that we're not seeing? Highest graded draft-eligible quarterbacks under pressure last season. Zach Wilson was 1. Justin Fields was 2. So all these like knocks on Fields as a player, or he can't process information. Statistically speaking, the numbers don't back that up. Don't back it up at all.
Guy threw 41 touchdowns and 3 picks in the last normal college football season. You know, I think it's more important to look at what these guys were doing in 2019 than whatever the hell that was, that thing they called a season last year when, you know, Ohio State was missing key players throughout that entire season.
Right.
It's really hard to base anything on the 2020 campaign.
Mac Jones had 1 year of starting experience. Justin Fields had more than that. We've seen Justin Fields playing more big games than we've seen Mac Jones playing, where he's coached by Nick Saban and Steve Sarkisian and is throwing to all these guys that could go in the top 10, like Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, and Michi's going to be a first rounder next year. I like Mac Jones. I don't want to knock Mac Jones, but anyone questioning like Fields' leadership, there's only one quarterback in this class that has a DUI arrest, and that's Mac Jones. That doesn't mean that he can't, you know, he hasn't learned from that mistake. It was a couple of years ago. I'm not going to judge a guy on a bad decision they made when they're in college. We've all made mistakes, but that doesn't get brought up with Mac Jones.
And again, back to a point you made earlier, if that happened to Justin Fields, hypothetically, can you imagine?
Can you imagine? Exactly. Justin Fields says what Trevor Lawrence said. Could you imagine the reaction? Justin Fields has a DUI arrest in college. Could you imagine? Now, I've said all along, I trust Kyle Shanahan. Like, that's a guy I think knows what he's doing. That's a guy that knows offense. You got to trust him to make the right pick. But I've never truly understood why you'd move up that high, trade 2 1s and a third for Mac Jones. Like, what's Mac Jones' ceiling at the next level? I look at the other quarterback options, and I think the ceiling for Fields is a lot higher than whatever it is for Mac Jones. Isn't Mac Jones kind of similar to Jimmy Garoppolo? Pocket quarterback, beat you with accuracy. He's not a special athlete. Fields is a special athlete. He's chiseled. Like he's a physical specimen. Like that's the guy you move up for in the draft, that you harness his full potential. So in Kyle Shanahan, I trust. If they take Mac Jones, who am I to criticize him? But we'll see. I truly believe when it's all said and done, Fields is the guy that should be taken 3rd overall, and I think he's the guy at the end of the day that does go 3rd overall to the San Francisco 49ers. Coming up next, the latest with Deshaun Watson. We'll check in with a Houston reporter.